Johnny Appleseed and the Bears by David Novak. What is the house that is round and red, without window or door, table or bed? What house has a chimney on the top? When the chimney breaks, the house will drop. What house is it when opened wide, shows a star or two inside? That house is an apple. How Johnny Appleseed and the Bears came to be. There are many stories of the adventures of Johnny Appleseed. Johnny Chapman, better known as Johnny Appleseed. He traveled from Pennsylvania through Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois during the early 1800s, planting apple seeds for the pioneers. He died in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and his grave can be found there at Johnny Appleseed Park. Johnny is said to have become quite a storyteller, and he made a practice of planting stories as well as seeds. His two favorite books were the Bible and Aesop's Fables. Characters like Johnny Appleseed have long been an inspiration to storytellers like me. Johnny and Appleseed and the Bears is my original contribution to a long and lively tradition of fables about American folk heroes. One sunny day in early October, Johnny Appleseed hiked up a wide mountain meadow. He carried a sack full of bright red apples, fresh picked from one of his apple orchards. Today was his day for cutting out seeds. Later, he would plant the seeds for the people he visited. When the seeds grew into trees, the people would have fresh apples to eat. Johnny leaned against a sun-warmed rock in the middle of the bright meadow. He took out his paring knife and began slicing open apples, and then he took out the seeds. The trees were ablaze with autumn colors. The air was fresh and cool. This was just the sort of place Johnny considered to be heaven on earth. So as he worked, he made up a song. How happy am I to sit in the sun with bright autumn colors and a cool autumn breeze. I'm doing the work that needs to be done with apples I've grown from my own apple trees. Johnny thought he heard something growl. He listened. Everything was quiet, so Johnny went back to work. Grrr. There it was again, that growling grrr. Johnny looked up. At the edge of the woods, he could see a dark shadow. Out of that shadow stuck a black, shiny nose. Attached to that nose was a big black bear. Now, Johnny knew a thing or two about bears. He knew that bears sleep in the winter and they don't wake up until the spring. He knew that autumn is the time when bears are always eating to get ready for their long winter sleep. Johnny also knew that bears will eat just about anything. They might even eat Johnny Appleseed. Papa Bear started coming toward him, but Johnny didn't panic. He said, "Papa Bear, how would you like an apple? Apples are sweet and sugary. They taste better than any scrawny old Johnny Appleseed." Johnny reached into his sack, sliced open an apple, and took out the seeds. And then he tossed the rest of the apple to Papa Bear. Papa Bear picked up that apple and munched on it. And then he nodded as if to say, "Thank you kindly." Johnny said, "Don't mention it, friend. I'm glad to be of service." Papa Bear turned around and walked off into the woods. Everything was really quiet, so Johnny went back to work. Suddenly he heard two growls. Grrr, grrr. Now there were two black bears, a Papa Bear and a Mama Bear. Well, Johnny had plenty of apples. He reached into his sack, sliced some open, and took out the seeds. And then he tossed the apples to the two bears. Papa Bear and Mama Bear ate the apples, nodded to Johnny, and then walked away. Everything was quiet, so Johnny went back to work. Grrr, grrr, grrr. 3 growls. There was Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. Once again, Johnny reached into his sack, sliced open the apples, took out the seeds, and then he tossed the apples to the bears. Once again, the bears ate the apples, nodded to Johnny, and walked away. Now, things weren't very quiet after that. Along came Papa Bear, Mama Bear, Baby Bear, Grandpa Bear, Grandma Bear, Aunt Bear, Uncle Bear, and Cousin Bear. And there were still more bears coming. Soon all the bears on that mountain came into the meadow for a big bear picnic. Over and over, Johnny reached into his sack, sliced open some apples, and took out the seeds. And then he tossed the apples to the bears. He was afraid he might run out of apples, but he kept finding more and more apples in his sack. Finally, all the bears were full. They stretched out in that meadow and looked at Johnny with big, black, shiny eyes. I wonder what they want now, said Johnny. And then he understood. Those bears had to wear the same furry suit of clothes all the time. They were bound to itch. So Johnny stepped among the bears, giving them scratches. The bears stretched and yawned, and one by one they fell asleep. Soon everything was quiet. Johnny Appleseed stood in the middle of that meadow, watching those dozing bears. He watched for a long time, and then he thought, I have to travel on, and I'm not likely to be back this way again. I wonder who will be here to feed the bears and scratch their backs. I'll plant my apple seeds for the people to eat, but I suppose I could spare a few for the bears. So Johnny stepped among the bears once more. This time he planted seeds, one for each bear. Finally, he picked up the sack and he tiptoed away. That was a long time ago, and Johnny Appleseed has long since left the world, but his apple trees are still there. There's a mountain meadow in the northern Appalachian Range with a wild apple orchard growing in it. If you go there in the autumn, you're likely to find a black bear or two munching on apples and rubbing up against the trees. For after all these years, Johnny Appleseed still feeds the bears and scratches their back. Johnny Appleseed and the Bears.